Hey, God bless you guys, and welcome to iambrianarocho Ministries, where our purpose is to teach, equip, and inspire believers in their spiritual walk. Now, in this video, I want to talk about 3 keys to spiritual maturity. Now, here's a heads up. These keys are not talking about prayer, it's not talking about the word, and it's not talking about congregating, okay? I believe that those spiritual disciplines are foundational, okay? And in order to mature, those have to first and foremost be paramount. So if you're struggling with getting into prayer and getting into the word, or finding the right church, I think those are paramount first and foremost before we talk about spiritual maturity on this level, okay? Now, with that being said, let's dive right in. Now, the first key is understanding that people are your priority. Notice that I didn't say people pleasing is your priority. Rather, people are your priority. And it's the reason why the Apostle Paul mentioned in 1 Corinthians 12 about the body of Christ being one body with many parts, explaining the interdependency upon the body to fully function correctly. Okay? Now, this is important because, first and foremost, you understand that you're not built like the next person. All right. So it allows you to have a different tolerance and understanding for things that you don't understand. How a person can be a certain way that's not the same way as you, but how both of them can work cohesively to to better function as the body. All right. It's like two pieces of a puzzle. They're not shaped the same, but they can be put together to see a bigger piece of the picture. Okay. And that's the way that God sees relationships between people. Okay. In Matthew chapter 22, Jesus says that there are 2 commandments that are the most important above all. First and foremost is loving your God with all your heart, might, and soul. And then the second one is equally as important, and that's loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, notice that the first one, loving your God with all your heart, might, and soul, you get that in the foundational principles, right? You in the foundational spiritual disciplines. You're diving into the word to understand the voice of God more, right? You're building relationship with God by way of your prayers, right? So those are that when we're talking about spiritual maturity on this level, those are already taken care of in the foundational, okay? But it's understanding that people are your priority, okay? Show me that in the word. I'd love to, okay? Every single time that the people of God called to God for help, God sent a person. I'm going to repeat that one more time. When the people of God would cry out to God through their prayers, God answered their prayer through people. There was Moses. You go through the book of Judges. Constantly, when the hearts of the people were turned toward God and cried out to him, God would send a person. So first is understanding people are your priority, okay? And listen, I get it. People are not the easiest people to love, right? But it's something that we got to work on, and that's part of why it's such an important key. Being able to love the person even when they're unlovable, okay? So that's key number 1. Understanding people are your priority. Your assignment, your purpose is tied into people. Now, the second key is understanding your role, your calling, and your purpose. Now, I don't want to get into understanding what your calling and your purpose is too much in this video. Maybe I'll do a separate video, but I do want to get into this as a key. So I actually want to use the example of David's life for this key. Now, David's ultimate purpose on this earth was to establish a throne for the coming Messiah. That was the ultimate purpose of David. That's why Jesus is known as a branch from the root of David. Okay. However, his calling was to be king, okay? They're not the same thing. His ultimate purpose was to establish the throne for the coming Messiah. His calling was to be king, but his roles varied throughout his lifetime, okay? So his roles varied from shepherd to musician to warrior and armor bearer and ultimately king. His roles varied from stage to stage, all right? Now, what does this have to do with you, right? When you understand what your role, your calling, and your purpose is, you're able to identify the season that you're currently in, okay? And it allows you to be able to funnel out. It allows you to be able to separate the things that are for you as opposed to the things that are not for you. I'll give you an example, all right? If you don't have a calling and a heart for children, well, maybe the children's ministry may not necessarily be for you. It takes a special person. It takes a nurturing person to be able to deal with children in a certain manner. It doesn't mean that you don't love kids, but maybe the nurturing aspect and what you're called to and the role that you should be playing in that season is not necessarily involving children. Maybe it's in another aspect. Maybe you have more of a heart for troubled teens, or maybe you have more of a heart for couples, or for men, or for women, or so many other areas other than children. So if there's a need in the children's ministry, you understand, well, I can help this situation by not volunteering, because I understand that all it's going to do is going to end up making me feel frustrated, and I'm not going to be able to give the children what they need when I try to fulfill this role, okay? So it allows you to understand where you fit and where you do not fit, okay? It allows you to not waste time. It allows you to understand who you should be partnering up with so that you can better move in the areas where you're called to move, okay? Now, there are certain roles that you can play in a season that will sharpen the tools that are necessary for your calling, okay? I hope that clarifies things a little bit. So key number 2 is understanding your role, your calling, and your purpose. Going into identifying your calling and your purpose, that's a whole other video. That's too much for me to dive into right now, okay? But that's key number 2. And key number 3 is accountability. Understanding that you cannot be a lone ranger in this walk, okay? And we talked about 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the interdependency within the body, right? Look at this. Understanding that people are your priority, and then understanding your role, your calling, and your purpose will then allow you to be able to find who you can be accountable to, okay? Everybody should have somebody, or should be seeking to be accountable to somebody, okay? Accountability does a variety of different things. It keeps you humble, okay? It gives you a different point of view, a vantage point and perspective in situations where you may not necessarily see where you're wrong at, okay? Accountability mentors you, okay? Accountability encourages and strengthens your faith. Accountability speaks to your soul, okay? So accountability is necessary and important when we talk about spiritual maturity, okay? Now, accountability can come in a variety of different ways, right? Some people may have a mentor or a life coach. Some people may have the paternal figure, spiritual parent that they can go to be accountable, right? Some people have coverings or relations. Sometimes accountability can even be between friends, holding each other accountable. Okay? So these are the 3 keys to spiritual maturity. All right? You master these 3 keys. If you work on these 3 areas, God will launch you to the next level. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Do me a favor, if you found any value in this video at all, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with future videos. Do me a favor, if you know somebody that needs to hear this word, share, share, share. Until next time, God bless.